This series is sponsored by our friends at Wild Health, leaders of personalized, genetics-based precision medicine.
The way we take care of ourselves is ever evolving. And what we know for sure is that our mind and spirit are linked to our physical body, and that our wellness seems to extend into our communities and the planet we all share. It is very, very clear that wellness is interconnected. We love spending time with you to explore and practice the breakthroughs, the insights, and the passions of incredible people helping us all see the world in a whole new light. This is Health Gig.
We are so excited to have Hannah Wendt join us today on Health Gig. Hannah is the co-founder of an amazing company called TruDiagnostic. And honestly, I cannot wait for you to hear this conversation that we had today. As Matt Dawson has taught Doro and I, and so many of us, precision medicine will change our health span. You're going to learn about how you can better take care of yourself and those that you love by true precision medicine. Hannah, welcome to Health Gig.
Yeah, thanks, Tricia. I'm excited to be here.
Doro and I are so excited. She's not here today, but she was all part of the research and she's given me a ton of questions to ask you. So can't wait to hear everything you have to say. But just to start, tell me about you, who you are, where you got started, and how it led to right here today.
Absolutely. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share. So right now, I'm the co-founder at TruDiagnostic, and we can get into what exactly my company does later. But really, ever since I was a little girl, I remember just being super motivated, determined, interested in how the world works, right? Always digging my hands into the dirt and playing outside. So I knew I was going to excel at school and really go down this path of scientific-based interests. So ended up wanting to be a veterinarian, be a genetic counselor. There were all these different careers I was really hoping to become one day. But my career path really changed when I didn't get into genetic counseling school. Actually, right out of college, I was, obviously devastated and thought my world was crashing down, but took an interesting position at a pharmacy that really led the United States in producing compounded peptides to cash pay integrative healthcare providers. And that was when my whole world changed, and I was really introduced to functional medicine, integrative medicine, true healthy medicine, right? Instead of just treating that sick person or that sick care versus healthcare model we talk about. I worked at the pharmacy. We ended up becoming the fourth fastest growing healthcare company in the nation in 2019. It was a really, really fun time in my career. Unfortunately, the peptides brought in a lot of regulatory based issues. So the owners ended up selling that company, and we were creating TruDiagnostic in the background as a way to actually add more data into how those peptides and those molecules we were producing at the pharmacy affected this number one risk, being aging, biological aging, for all-cause mortality and morbidity. So we were always creating kind of TruDiagnostic in the background, figuring out how we could actually measure this aging process to provide more quantitative data about those molecules and really how they could help our health. So that's a little bit about my journey and how I got there. I've always been more of that technology, scientific, entrepreneur aspect.
And you're out of Kentucky, in Lexington?
Yes, I'm in Lexington, Kentucky right now. I'm from north of Dayton, Ohio, a super small town, and came to UK for school.
Is that how you got to know Wild Health?
Yeah, absolutely. So Wild Health is an amazing clinic. They use the TruDiagnostic biological age kits that we'll talk about a little bit later as well on all of their patients in their patient model and system. So they really believe in the science and what we're doing here.
Yeah, Matt is just all about it and has introduced us to you and to TruDiagnostic. So, okay, we can get started. So let's get to sort of the basics. A minute ago you talked about peptides. Can you explain that? Just so we get a baseline, and then we'll go into epigenetics. So we get our terms correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So peptides, this is a really big buzzword. I mean, it really has been for the past decade or so. And a peptide is really just a short chain of amino acids linked together by peptide bonds. So they're just chemical bonds that are formed between certain groups of amino acids and other amino acids of another group, releasing certain signals in the body. So they're really an essential natural part of our biology. You can take peptides as well to help boost some internal functions in our body, but really they're just building blocks for proteins when those kind of chains of amino acids are formed in the body.
Okay. Because we're hearing about peptides so much now, right? It's in creams, it's in this, it's in pills and all that kind of stuff. So it's a building block.
Exactly. They're biological signaling molecules, you could say almost. So a lot of peptides act as hormones or neurotransmitters or other signaling molecules that really help coordinate biological functions across different organ systems in the body, depending on which peptide you're actually taking.
Thank you for that. Let's move into TruDiagnostic. So it's so incredible what you're doing and why you're doing it. And I guess the big headline is that this is a tool to help us age differently. This is a tool that's going to help give us more information, that sort of every man more information. This is available to everybody. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah, that's correct.
And people have access to it. But can you sort of start from the beginning and explain what it is? And I guess with that, what is epigenetics? Because what they say is, or what you say on your website is TruDiagnostic, the epigenetic company.
Yeah.
And that's what you say on your boxes.
Absolutely. Yeah. So TruDiagnostic, we've evolved ever since we've been open. We really still are. We're trying to find that identity, right? Who are we? At this moment, Tricia, when we're recording right now, I would say TruDiagnostic is a leading health data company. And what we really do is we specialize in measuring, interpreting, and really understanding epigenetics as it relates to life, as it relates to our health, our underlying biology. And I know that sounds like a lot of words, so what does that really mean? Well, epigenetics, Tricia, is really looking at the modifications of our genetics. So let me say that again in a different way. Epi is a Greek prefix. It means above or on top of. So we're quite literally looking on top of your genome, on top of your genetic expression. To compare how that relates to genetics, I think this is a really good example. And Wild Health does a great job at measuring your genetics as well, right? You can measure your genetics. That's never going to change. You get 50% from parent 1, 50% from parent 2. It's the same in every single cell type. You will never change that unless you're doing some crazy gene editing. However, your epigenetics actually controls that gene expression, those genetics. So your epigenetics, think of it as a light switch, turn on certain genes and turn off certain genes. And your epigenetics are going to be different in almost every single cell type. Thus, you can remeasure it over time as well, which you can't do with your genetics. So I like to call your epigenetics your software that is controlling the hardware or your genetics.
And understanding that shows that we actually can control our genes. And I don't want to say control our genes, but we're able to, as you said, turn them off or turn them on. Oftentimes through lifestyle, correct? Oftentimes, and that's why, and we're going to get into it when we talked about the symphony age, it is important and exciting to be able to know where we're at so we can make these changes. When did this all start happening? When did this technology start? Because before that, we didn't have the access or the ability to find this information out.
It's been around only for about 10 years. So really it was this technology, and by technology, I mean the ways we are starting to measure aging and really look at these models became available in 2013, really by Dr. Steve Horvath. He's pioneered this space and will probably win a Nobel Prize for his work in this. I was not at the meeting where he presented this work, but I know a lot of people who were, and they just say when he showed the data showing that we can actually predict chronological age by looking at the DNA methylation markers, they said you just don't see those correlations in science, and their jaw quite literally dropped to the floor. So we've made a lot of advancements since then and actually able to measure biological age instead of just predicting accurately chronological age. So we've made a lot of advancements, I would say, just in the past 2 to 3 years at my company. So you can start to actually use these in the clinic. That's really the point of these predictors.
Right.
Now.
So now, will it ever get to the point where when they ask your age, there's 2 places, chronological and biological, do you think? Or is it that important?
I think it will. I think it already is. I think it just adds a whole nother layer of your medical avatar, so to speak. If your biological age is older than your chronological age, well, maybe you shouldn't be trying to get pregnant. Maybe you shouldn't go into surgery, right? Maybe you aren't great for this certain therapy. Maybe you need a certain treatment regimen based on that biological age. So we know chronological age is just not a good predictor. Say, for example, you have a group of 10 people who are 45 years old chronologically. Some of them may look like they're 65. Some of them may look like they're 35 or 25. So we need another marker. And that is where the biological age testing and all these new advancements we've created is starting to really replace even chronological age, I think, eventually. That's the goal.
You know, what's so interesting what you were saying. So with that information, you'll know if, as you said, should I get pregnant? Should I do this? Should I do that? But also too, as you're aging, so much happens. Well, like when you hit 65, you can't do this or you can't do that. But oftentimes biological age could be much younger. So then that does open you up to other opportunities. So this whole standard that the society is living by is going to be turned upside down. Is that true to say, or could it happen?
Yeah, I think so. And I think what you're really hinting at, Tricia, is the idea of, your lifespan and your health span.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
That's like kind of what you described without bringing it up. So lifespan, if we're going to define these terms, is how long you've been on this earth, how old you are. And same with chronological age, that really only goes up. You're not ever decreasing your lifespan, but health span is how many healthy years you have at the end of your life. And that's what I think you're hinting at, Tricia, because I know I don't want to live forever. I don't want to live until I'm 200, but I really don't want to live even to 150 if those last 50 years of my life just include, sitting in a chair and not being able to move, not being able to walk myself to the restroom or start a new business. So hinting at someone's why, like, why are we having this conversation right now? Why do you want your biological age tested is a very personalized approach to this type of medicine too, which, like you said, Tricia, could give people more opportunities to do whatever they'd like in the future.
And it's so important that people begin to take responsibility for their own health. And this kind of testing allows them those tools, which is so exciting. I guess you probably get this next question a lot, and then I want to dive into the symphony age. But is there a way to tell when you're going to die? Is there a test then, or how does that work?
We actually just created a new algorithm with Harvard called Omic M-Age, and that'll be included in anyone who takes the test in the complete kit, so that full kit that we have. That Omic M-Age is what we think is the best biological age clock that's ever been created to date because of its ability to predict outcomes. That's really kind of how we judge how well these clocks perform, because it needs to be able to predict outcomes in order to, like you said, change lifestyle or change your protocol. And this algorithm, the way we trained it is we actually trained it for time until death. This is a part we don't put on the report, Tricia, for obvious reasons.
Yes.
But if we wanted to, we could predict death with a 92% accuracy rate within a 5-year timeline. So it's getting there.
That is amazing. But with that said, as you go through this, that could change too, right? I mean, it just is that picture in time. And I think you've said or explained that if you do the TruDiagnostic, you can kind of go along with your testing, right? Kind of move along with you. So I might do that every year.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Just like you have a genetic risk, you have all these certain type of risks. This is just your epigenetic risk. What's really cool, though, about your epigenetic risk is it's changeable, like you mentioned. So we do recommend testing with that complete kit. If you can, every 6 to 12 months. I know it can be a little bit more on the expensive side. So we do have a cheaper kit as well that's more for follow-up and management and really great for N-of-1 precision-based medicine. That just includes 2 of our reports, too. So, yeah, every 6 months. I think at a minimum, you need to be doing it at least once a year. Granted, you're sticking to a protocol or regimen. You want to see a change, so give yourself enough time to retest.
Mm-hmm. And how much are the kits?
The complete kit is going to be $4.99 on the website.
And how long does it take to get the results?
So we pride ourselves in being quick. So it'll be about 2 to 3 weeks from the time we receive the sample here at our lab in Lexington, Kentucky.
I have the kit. I'm opening the kit up. So it's pretty simple, right? I mean, it's something you just do at home.
Yeah, you're exactly right. It's super easy. You know, we drop ship it to you. You open it up and have the blood spot card in there. You prick your finger with a little lancet. It's about 10 to 15 drops of blood. You let it dry, stick it in the biohazard bag, put it in the return envelope, and ship it to our labs. It's super easy. You also have to register it online, I will say, and then you get those results back. And anyone who takes the test through you, Tricia, as well, or uses your affiliate link or code, I'm more than happy to even do, a free interpretation for them too.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
I think that's super important, right? You want a healthcare provider. You want someone who knows this data to really make recommendations. I mean, you can take it by yourself and you can interpret it. I think the report does a really good job at making recommendations for you, but there's always more to learn, more to talk about because this field moves so quickly.
So let's get into symphony age. So I think we've got the understanding of what is epigenetics. We know what genetics is. Genetics is what we're born with. Epigenetics is the ability to turn or turn off your gene through your lifestyle. And we understand what biological age is, and we understand what chronological age is. So let's get into the symphony age report. I'm looking at it right now, and basically you talk about this idea of healthspan versus lifespan. We talk about the clocks. So could you describe what the clocks are and how they're used in this?
Yeah, so an epigenetic clock, you'll hear the term biological age clock, and usually it's going to be synonymous, epigenetic clock, biological age clock. This is really a molecular biomarker, if you will, based on DNA methylation levels. So that's the true scientific term for describing those light switches, how much something is expressed, so turned on and turned off. That's really predicting the age of maybe a cell or tissue or organism with a very high precision, at least in our case, or high accuracy. DNA methylation, to explain that a little bit more, is just a little chemical modification that occurs at specific DNA sites. And it's one of the primary mechanisms involved in your epigenetic gene regulation. And, that can be, again, influenced by different things. So these epigenetic clocks are just algorithms or ways that they can predict certain outcomes using machine learning and AI in terms of the creation of those actual clocks.
Tell us all, what is symphony age and where it came from and the partnership that you've had with Yale?
I'm super excited to talk about this one, Tricia. This hasn't even been launched yet at the time of recording.
When will it be launched?
In about a month.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're really, really close. And this is a really cool clock because one of the issues previously has always been giving recommendations. Usually the biological age clocks in the past give you a number, and it's really hard to know exactly what you need to work on. The symphony age is one that we actually created with Yale, and it's really understanding the idea that everyone ages differently. I can definitely go deep into this, but really when we study the science of aging, and have created these epigenetic clocks, this is more accurate than even your birth date because, again, we want to be predictive of outcomes. So these types of tools that I'm talking about and that has been a big part of the conversation is telling us how old our body really is, how fast you're aging, because we know everyone doesn't age at the same rate. Just having that one number, as I mentioned, isn't enough. People live differently. Some exercise a lot and keep their bodies younger. Others might keep their mind sharp, for example, but not eat well. And that can make other parts of the body age faster. And if someone smokes or drinks a lot, it could speed up aging in their lungs, their heart, their liver, or their brain. So treating everyone the same like we have in the past when it comes to aging just doesn't make sense. That's why we created what we call the symphony age. And symphony stands for system, methylation, proxy of heterogeneous organ years. All right, so it's a mouthful. That's why we just call it symphony age. But it's a new way of looking and examining how different parts of the body age. So again, we created this with scientists at Yale, and they use a method to study 11 different body parts and see how that affects people differently. This big picture approach really helps us understand aging by putting all the pieces of the puzzle together.
Wow, that is so revolutionary. So basically, you're saying that it looks at the different organs. So my lungs may have a little different age than maybe my pancreas.
Yeah, exactly. So if we're thinking again about it in the terms of aging, there are many age-related illnesses that come from all different types of biological systems working together. So another example, for instance, would be arthritis. Arthritis is going to be the result of both musculoskeletal wear and inflammation, where a stroke could happen more due to problems in the cardiovascular system, metabolism, inflammation, brain function. So all of these interconnected pathways can lead to different aging profiles or aging types. People sometimes even call these agiotypes. That makes some people more prone to certain age-related diseases, and understanding those patterns really help forecast health outcomes and predict further.
Can you kind of explain like a patient A and then a patient B and how it could be really different?
We use this example a lot. Consider two individuals that are 50 years old, and most people who take the TruDiagnostic test, funny enough, are between like 40 and 60. So this would be like an average patient example. So patient A is a smoker, they have a very unhealthy diet, that leads to a higher metabolic and lung age. So maybe their lung age is, 9 years older, so 59, and their metabolic age is 7 years older at 57. So this patient, we know, because of these associations, is actually going to be at an increased risk for things like lung cancer, COPD, diabetes, and is increased due to that advanced organ aging. They're going to want to take certain therapies or interventions that are going to target that, right? We'd recommend something more like patient B, which would be someone who has a healthy diet, they exercise frequently, compared to patient A, they're going to have a decreased lung and metabolic age. Their lung age is going to be 4 years younger, let's say at 46, and 5 years younger for the metabolic age at 45. So patient B is going to be at a decreased risk for those certain diseases. So we're really starting to see, again, how your entire environment and your behavior, how you're interacting with the world is affecting these biological ages, thus affecting every single outcome that you're actually going to get later on in life.
If you were a smoker in your 20s and you stopped smoking, do you detect that? Do you see that, or what happens?
That's an interesting question. It's a really fun one to talk about too, Tricia, because smoking can actually be detected by epigenetics and DNA methylation, and it's actually more accurate than self-reported smoking status.
I was going to say that. Do you ask them, or does the body tell them? Okay.
We ask them and the body tells us, and then we can compare the two, maybe find out if someone's fibbing a little bit more. It is interesting. I would say smoking has definitely been, if not, in top 3, it's probably the number one epidemiological factor that's been studied when it's come to epigenetic aging, just because, again, we have a lot of data on that. You can actually see signatures, and there's even just one gene you can really look at, one epigenetic modification that you can look at to really tell if someone's a current smoker, a past smoker as well, and how much.
Can you actually see how much it aged you? That specific or not yet?
I would say not at an individual level, so we can quantify, hey, how much have they actually smoked? There are larger population studies saying, hey, we know that smoking ages you from a general population standpoint. But again, you still need that N of 1 kind of testing to really understand if you were a past smoker, how is that affecting your aging? Have you really turned your life around? Or are you still smoking? Or are you getting more secondhand smoke too?
Will it show the difference between secondhand smoke and real smoke, or it's a body just see it as the same?
Yeah, just the same for now. I would say a little bit hard to even differentiate between smoking and even like e-cigarettes as well, or the vaping. So there was one study that came out pretty recent that showed e-cigarette users had similar changes to DNA in specific cheek cells as smokers. But again, it's early research. It's more correlation. I mean, we're seeing the same type of signatures, and you could probably hypothesize that despite vaping being marketed as a safer alternative to smoking, its long-term health effects are very uncertain, and that's what we're trying to really dig into in that study.
And same with cannabis or smoking the marijuana and that kind of thing. That's also smoke and inhaling.
Yeah, definitely.
What about, and I know there's a lot of talk about alcohol and the management of alcohol, and again, the early years of alcohol use versus the later use. And is it the same way that you see smoking?
Yeah, it's going to be a little bit different. Same way we talk about smoking in terms of, you can stop consuming alcohol and see that signature become less prominent as time goes on. We know for a fact, obviously same with smoking, we wouldn't recommend any smoking or any alcohol consumption. So on average, that's when I do know off the top of my head, people who do consume alcohol or have alcohol use disorder, which isn't a lot when you think about it. It's just 7 drinks a week for women and 14 a week for men. So, if you're drinking a glass of wine every night and you're a woman, you're meeting this threshold, you would age or have an increased biological age of 2.22 years if you reach that threshold. So it adds up, right?
I was just going to say, so if I'm
factors.
40 and I keep drinking 7 glasses of wine as a woman a week for 10 years, it compounds.
You're going to continue to increase that biological age. Mm-hmm.
That's such interesting information. That's just definitely, again, something that we can manage ourselves. What about sugar? Do you ever get that deep on sugar?
Ooh, I would say not sugar like as a standalone, but obviously in the diet and the nutritional recommendations that we see, or kind of those plans, which show reduced biological aging, they're not going to include sugar, right?
Right.
We would definitely then say that the same is true of the opposite. If you are intaking large quantities of sugar or doing more of an artificial-based diet, kind of additives, sweeteners, you're going to have increased biological aging. And that research really points to Mediterranean diet and things like that.
So what's so interesting as you're talking about this, I was thinking, Ozempic. So people are going to go on Ozempic. How is that going to affect them?
Yeah, so we're investigating it right now, actually. So we mainly work with healthcare providers in the integrated functional medicine space. So they have a lot of great data on, their patients, what medications they're taking. So we're working with a couple of our healthcare providers for a pretty large scale study with those GLP-1 peptides and understanding how they're really affecting these epigenetic markers. No data on that yet. We'll have to do a follow-up because
Yes.
there definitely has to be some connection there.
Just to reiterate why this is so important for people and why it sort of does change the way that we begin to take care of ourselves is this understanding that we will see where we're putting ourselves at risk for health related issues. If I get this and I see I'm compromised, will it help you detect or see the imbalance or the dis-ease, I guess, that could lead to cancer? I mean, is it taking us down those paths?
Yes and no. We have a risk report. It's not available directly to the consumer on the website. We do have some insights that can look at cellular replication levels, which could be correlated to cancer outcomes, but we don't actually have any cancer test ourselves here at TruDiagnostic. Actually, funny enough, though, we are partnering with a company. Their name is Precision Epigenomics. They have a test called EpiSeq. That is a stage 0 liquid biopsy DNA methylation test. So they're really looking at very, very early cancer cells or signals floating around in the body, which basically can give you, yes, it looks like you may have some early cancer cells in the body. Maybe you want to take further action in other steps or get something like a CT scan. So we're launching with them today. We're doing a webinar with them tonight. So you can't get it directly off of our website, but if you are interested, we can connect you with a healthcare provider to actually take that test.
So again, it's the whole early detection thing that if we can find it sooner, there's ways to combat it or to deal with it. And that's what's so amazing about this technology. What else do you see that are the benefits of this? And then I would love to kind of break it down and look at the clock a little deeper and the immune system, the skeleton system, the brain, the kidney, all of that.
We talked about you having a better understanding of your disease risk and kind of the earlier detection of disease that you mentioned. It just leads to this area of healthier medicine again, precision medicine, where you're getting tailored treatment protocols and it's actually improving your health and lifestyle choices. Because, I recommend everyone get a baseline, especially if they're curious, even purchase the cheaper test just to get your feet wet. What you're going to notice is once you take this, it's really tangible. It's something that you can look at and say, oh, wow, I am a little bit older. And then you can look back and say, gosh, I actually haven't been going to the gym like I've been promising myself, right? I haven't been eating all of those vegetables that I thought I was buying, at the store. I've been throwing them away every week. So It's really kind of a wake-up call. I encourage people to take the test, to start tracking. The only complaint I get from people who take the test is, oh, I wish I would have taken it earlier when I wasn't as healthy. That way I can actually see my journey across my entire life. So it does act as a little bit of a gamification to really help people stick to those lifestyle factors or those promises that they're keeping to themselves. And you're going to notice a better way of life, quality, not only in just your own health, but, relationships kind of externally as well.
I love what you said. The younger you are that you know about this, that would be fabulous to be able to do something like this in your 20s and 30s and then just track yourself and really establish habits that lead to a longer health span. I'm just thinking too of my children. And I'm thinking about other families that have had cancer or have had a family member have a chronic disease of some sort and how much they want to know. I just think it's such great information. Great, great, great.
You always see things on social media like you're in control of your DNA, right? Your DNA is not your destiny. Food is medicine. You are what you eat. So all of those kind of sayings or trendy explanations are actually defining epigenetics without really saying it, because that's what they're saying is, hey, you're not a victim to your predisposition from your family members. You actually are in the driver's seat and can start taking responsibility really of your own health.
that will just inform the different choices, the different lifestyle that you do, and also then the next generation. It's just incredible how it could really change the trajectory of so many of our lives. But again, you talked about how this specific clock was designed. This specific clock is actually looking at each organ. And I'm looking at how it comes in. In this report, and it shows me exactly where my current age is, where my symphony age is, and then where the age is in this report, where my lung is.
We would say, lung age looks great. Lung age is younger than your current age. For example, this person would be engaging probably in VO2 max exercises, FEV1 based exercises. So they're doing things to keep their lung capacity very healthy, which is something that, we may lose as we start to get older chronologically, because we're not going to be as heavily involved in those type of aerobic based exercises. Are we doing endurance, right? Are we hiking, biking, swimming, long jogs? So really doing exercises that are going to help that volume uptake, VO2 max, and then FEV1 force expiratory volume as
And
well.
that's where you're saying that correlates with what can I do, which is so cool. And then the metabolic age.
Yeah, so each individual kind of organ age of the symphony age are going to be created with particular systems related biomarkers and diseases. So the biomarkers and diseases that we think about that go into the metabolic age are going to be related to smoking somewhat, diabetes, more inflammatory based markers like your IL-6, your C-reactive protein, your glucose, more cholesterol, HDL, LDL cholesterol, triglycerides, even things like your waist circumference. Disease-wise, then, we're thinking a little bit of cognitive function, some physical function, total comorbidities, again, diabetes, even cataract is included actually in this metabolic-based organ system clock as well. So you're thinking things that are going to really drive overall metabolic function. And you mentioned, in this example we're talking about and looking at, that metabolic age is really kind of maybe just a year older than someone's current age. So we may want to do a review of triglycerides, cholesterol, even get some traditional lab testing done, which I recommend anyways to do alongside of this to make sure those markers are in check.
Oh, this one I thought was so interesting, and of course, very interesting to people that are 60 and over, is the muscular skeleton age.
The musculoskeletal one is one that's pretty interesting as well. Really think more movement, for example, bone density, physical function. Think of, biomarkers, and these biomarkers I'm going to name off here too are actually included in the algorithm for this musculoskeletal organ symphony age. Things like vitamin D, your insulin-like growth factor, binding protein, diseases like arthritis, your height, weight, BMI, other mobility-based outcomes will be included as well. So think strength exercises, think balance, timed walk test, your hand grip is actually going to be included in the creation of this algorithm.
Wow.
Full body history when it comes to musculoskeletal system. So any issues with like back problems, knees, joints, any type of stiffness as well. Functional scores, balance scores here.
What I think is so great about this is that people that, in my case, I had osteoporosis, on my DEXA scan and all that kind of stuff, and have reversed it. And this idea that people don't know that we can change, our bodies change. So it's really cool to be able to have this muscular skeleton age that includes my bone health. They're saying maybe DEXAs aren't the right way, maybe it's REMS, maybe different kind of testing, but this is going to be another piece of information that can help me monitor it. And again, in my case, not do medication, because I'm able to monitor and see that I can actually reverse it and have learned how.
Yeah, I think that's the goal, right? Is how do we get away, not only even from medications, but all these supplements people are being marketed. That's why we don't offer supplements, right? We don't offer the testing and the solution, because we're not telling you, hey, here's a score, here's what you need to do to fix it, and then just making money off that back end, right? You'll see a lot of commercialized, consumer-based biological age testing companies do that, and we don't believe in that as a company, I guess. So we'll make recommendations, but keep them church and state.
Really appreciate that, because at some point, I remember, this is probably, I don't know, I don't even remember when it was, but at one point, Hannah, I looked at my cabinets and I barely had any food. It was all supplements. It was like, okay, I'm getting my calcium this way. I'm getting this way. I'm doing it this way. And it was finally like, wait, what happened? I need to be eating and I need to be doing different things and letting the body absorb it that way. It was like a weird time in my life where it was just like, oh, buy this now. And as you say, it just comes at you. And it's like, wow, if I could just eat, maybe this might be a better way.
I'm guilty of it as well, right? I still think my supplement cabinet, I'm like, whoa, okay, what did I get from this conference, or what did this person send me to try? Or there's a bunch of stuff and it's all really cool and interesting, but to really back up and ask yourself, okay, why am I taking this? Does my body actually need this? What's the evidence? That's why even these biological age clocks, people can really take even just 2 to 3 months apart, change one supplement, see if it's increasing aging or decreasing aging. And if it's doing one or the other, you either keep it or you toss it, right? You're not wasting your money on that.
Right. And again, what's good for my body? That's what's so cool about this, is what's working for me in my body. And am I digesting it? Am I absorbing it? Tell me about blood age.
Yeah, so this one is going to really go hand in hand almost with that metabolic based age in terms of really reporting out on some of your blood based factors in terms of getting your bloods run every 6 months, every 12 months or so. Things like your ferritin, hematocrit, hemoglobin, different markers out of the blood itself, red blood cell distribution width, red blood cell count, platelet count, platelet distribution width, and a couple other diseases as well in terms of like leukemia, cataracts even are listed in this one.
And liver age, it's your liver. And our liver is an incredible organ, right?
Absolutely. That's where, the alcohol may shine a little bit further as well, right? In terms of some lifestyle factors.
This is incredible. Inflammation age. We normally see that on our blood work, right? Through different ways, but this is a combination of all that.
You'll get more of those as well. So the biomarkers going into the inflammation-based age are, again, going to be more of like the C-reactive protein, the IL-6, different growth factors, different inflammatory-based markers as well. This is a really good one for, again, as we get older, we start to gain a lot of inflammation or inflammaging, right? So we may want to recommend anti-inflammatory-based protocols from a dietary standpoint or even from an exercise standpoint to reducing that oxidative stress, which is maybe causing that inflammation in the first place. And we may even want to, there are a couple supplements and things you can take to reduce inflammation as well later on if it continues to persist.
And kidney age, that's really important to start taking care of our kidneys. There's a thought thinking about kidneys.
Of course, your albumin, think your urea, nitrogen, chloride, biocarbonate, creatinine, potassium, sodium. So being able to filter the kidneys properly, making sure you have enough hydration for the kidneys as well. You're not eating too much protein. Inhibiting that kidney filtration process is also important.
Where will it tell me if you are eating enough protein? Because it's all about protein right now. Is that embedded in some of these or just overall?
There are some certain markers that may be indicative of that, kind of on our larger omic MH report that we created with Harvard. So there are a couple individual-based markers. We give you even albumin, insulin-like growth factor binding protein 2, creatinine actually, as well, a couple other kidney-based markers in that individualized report, which may say, okay, you may be eating a little bit more protein than necessary, or you may need some more as well.
And heart age?
Yeah, heart age is going to be very important, right? We know heart disease is one of the number one killers here in the U.S. So these are going to be things like shortness of breath even. It's going to have data and history built in it from people who've had stroke, your homocysteine levels, your BMI, heart attack data, high blood pressure, shortness of breath. This one is, I think, going to be one of the number one markers people are looking at just because of coronary artery disease and how many heart attacks really kind of go unnoticed or almost unsolved in the U.S.
And then tell me about immune system age.
Immune system age, this one I think will be great. I mean, there's a ton of biomarkers we've included in this immune system age and how we created it and what it's based on. So think all of your immune cell subset type counts, your lymphocyte, monocyte, neutrophil, basophils, eosinophils. Think white blood cell count, dendritic cells, naive cells, CD4, CD8. There's a lot of them that go into this one. I think this immune system one will be great. It'll tell you if you're kind of immunosuppressed. Are you hyperreactive? Is there something we need to work on here to actually boost the immune system? Would probably be interesting to get some data on that and even COVID as well.
Yeah, that should be really interesting. And then brain age.
Yeah, the brain age, I think, will also be a really popular one. I think this one was pretty good in terms of how it was trained and created. So again, think more of your homocysteine levels, your BDNF, serum, incidence of stroke, kind of these mental status scores, cognition, summary reports, memory speed, kind of word recalling. So a lot of brain activity based biomarkers went into the creation of this. And it's of course going to be associated with cognitive function, neurodegenerative diseases as well. So, hey, do we need maybe a nootropic, right? Do we need to start practicing memory based related exercise? There's a lot of great things you can even do online or flashcards or apps, and they're gamified in a certain way to really boost that brain activity.
So this is the symphony. This is what I would get, what we just went through. This is what we would get. Pretty comprehensive if we did this test.
That'll be in the complete kit. Yep, in about a month. Yeah. So you're the first person I really went over that with, Tricia, so I'm super excited.
Well, seriously, looking at it, and as you said, having your blood work right next to it, and then you're clearly, because we have done clearly with the heart, so being able to have all of that data gives you peace of mind. And then also, as you say, it gives you action. It gives you places that you can work on. I don't want to say in a fun way, but like at least a targeted way. It's targeted. I'm not taking all this stuff because everybody else is taking it and it's working for them.
And I think, to your point, it's additive. It's not by any means a standalone test and you're going to solve all of your health issues, right? I think it's additive and you need to do it all together. Now, an interesting point, I was just at a longevity mastermind in New York this past weekend, and one of the doctors on the panel asked, hey, all of my patients' labs look good, right? I've kind of, put everything in reference range, not even reference range, optimal range. They're thriving, they feel good, but their biological age came back a little bit accelerated. What do I do now? And we have individual components already where we can dig in and actually say what's wrong and what they may need to push for a little bit more. Then even that symphony age report is going to give you those individual organ systems too, which may drive, again, if the heart age is very accelerated, maybe you want to do it clearly. Clearlies are expensive. They have a little bit of radiation. You just don't want to do those out of the blue, right? So this is more of an investigative tool for you to use that's capturing something that your traditional laboratory testing is not.
And interprets it in a way that you can understand it, because there's a lot of confusion on the blood work. You're right. There's just a lot of sometimes confusion in the way different doctors see it. So this is just, again, another piece of great information. Tell me about the role of stress.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one. And I think that's my biggest effector for my personal biological aging. So we just know generally a little bit of stress is good. I don't want to say that it's all bad. A little bit of stress means you have a reason to get up in the morning, right? You're doing something you love. You're motivated. You're determined. You have a purpose in life, and that purpose is very important. However, there's a study that just came out of Harvard a couple years ago. It's a really cool study that's called Biological Age Increases Upon Stress and Then Restored Upon Recovery. They specifically looked at severe COVID-19, they looked at pregnancy, and they looked at elected and unelected surgeries. So things like a scheduled hip surgery or things like an emergency surgery. And all of those different factors are going to initially increase your biological age. But the good news is that after those stressors, whether it's a couple weeks or a couple months, is actually going to reverse your biological age. And it may be even better than your baseline too.
The body can heal. You don't have to stay.
So you're recovering.
Yeah, you don't have to stay at that high level of stress all the time. I can see how excited you are, how this is a passion, how this just must be, I would imagine, kind of a dream for you. Like you said, you didn't know you'd be going down this path, but what else is exciting? What else do you want people to know?
Yeah, I think what's most exciting for me is where the new insights will be going. So we've recently kind of reinitiated the research we began with Harvard and found out that we can report out about 4,000 different clinical lab values, metabolites, or proteins with basically a 1-to-1 ratio. Again, taking your sample, nothing changes. You order the kit, you take that blood spot card, right? Send it back to our lab. Instead of going to LabCorp, Quest, you're paying a lot more money. You're taking this large sample and it's just, another appointment you have to go to. We can get those same values with our testing at a 1-to-1 ratio. It's almost 1-to-1. It's very, very close, right? It's never going to be perfect. Those are called epigenetic biomarker proxies, or EBPs. It's a really, really new idea. We coined that term here at TruDiagnostic. And again, it basically means we're looking and able to report out almost any other factor, whether it be hormones, neurotransmitter outcomes, different sexual function outcomes, cell subsets, inflammation-based outcomes, just through the lens of epigenetics and that blood spot card. So yeah, those are EBPs. And we'll probably have a report on that coming out later on, hopefully before the end of the year. That's really, I think, going to, wow a lot of people and even integrate this into their practices or their 6-month lab test routine even more.
So what is your day like? So what do you get up in the morning? And then, it just feels like there's so much amazing information, so much amazing things that I would imagine you're like, I got to get this out to everybody.
Yeah. We're definitely not starving for opportunities. I would say we're choking maybe a little bit in terms of there's so many, it's hard to keep the team narrowed and focused in. So kind of my day to day is I still speak with a lot of our healthcare providers on teaching them how to use this test, what it means for their practice, how to interpret it, how to include it in a model that works and is beneficial for both them and their patient, where they're going to get the best value. But a lot of it as well has been on these kind of new product updates and launches. So I mentioned that Precision Epigenomics partnership with that stage 0 liquid biopsy cancer screening test. We are launching the Symphony Age report that's coming up. We have some of those epigenetic biomarker reports coming up. So it's really gathering and working with our amazing team, but gathering all of the assets needed for those launches. Whether it be webinars, a lot of marketing resources, a lot of development work, a lot of product work.
And is a lot of this really escalated because of AI? How much is AI playing in this?
There are some AI generated epigenetic clocks. They're not going to account for a lot of the variance or kind of mean average error. They'll do okay, but I would say there's still needs and has to be a lot of human involvement. So we'll use machine learning or, AI to help maybe look at these outcomes and what they actually mean. And hey, are they 1-to-1 ratios? Which EBPs for that example are ready for prime time? But I would say, yeah, it's still going to be heavily discovered by the bioinformaticists on the team. But, we obviously use machine learning to train the models.
Wow, Hannah, this has been really amazing. I'm very excited to get mine taken and sort of begin to go down this journey with you all and to just see how I can take better care of myself, and as you say, extend the health span, which is so important.
That's really the end goal. Is we probably don't want to live forever, but we want to live a long time. And the time we are alive, we want those years to be healthy, surrounded by, people we love, doing things we love as well.
Well, thank you for the work that you're doing. And thanks for being on Health Gig.
Thanks, Tricia. I had a great time chatting and can't wait to catch up later.
Thank you for joining us on Health Gig. We loved having you with us. We hope you'll tune in again next week. In the meantime, be sure to like and subscribe to this podcast and follow us on healthgigpod.com. I'm Tricia.
And I'm Doro.
Be well.
Thanks again to Wild Health for helping to make this series possible by sharing valuable insights about personalized healthcare. Wild Health are pioneers in the field of precision medicine, a holistic and genetics-based approach to personalized care. Informed by biometrics, genomics, and lifestyle factors, Wild Health's team of board-certified providers customize health plans with individualized recommendations for diet, exercise, sleep, supplementation, mental health, disease risk reduction, and more. Sign up and get started today at wildhealth.com.